Let me know if my volume is okay. Test, test, test. There were some questions about my volume in another stream, so I just want to make sure this is going okay before I really get into the meat of things today. All right, well, so I've got a few things to talk about, and hopefully the network will cooperate with me. So I've got a process running in the background, and I think it's sucking some of my. Well, that should just be local bandwidth. It shouldn't really affect the stream going out to the internet. But yeah. So today we are talking about a couple of things. We're talking first about. Well, the first big topic is backup options in Proxmox. And then if we've got time left, we're going to talk about Linode and potentially spin up a Linode instance and see what we can do with that and just show some of the settings. I don't believe I've set up a Linode before, an actual instance on Linode. So this may be a little bit of a learning experience, but I have used Vultr and DigitalOcean for cloud instances in the past, and so this gives me a chance to sort of evaluate Linode and see if it offers anything unique that the other two don't offer. Ultimately, sometime during this year, I would like to consolidate on one of those three options for potentially a couple of additional cloud servers. So that's kind of where we're going today. All right, we've got 4 people in the chat. Well, I hope you're not hurting too much, David. I knew you guys were going to get hit out there on Long Island, but yikes. I don't think we've had a snowstorm like that in Michigan in 10 years now, so knock on wood. Welcome, Joseph. All right, so we got a few news items to go over real quick. The channel is now over 3,100 subscribers, so that's a little mini milestone. I'll really celebrate when I hit 3,500 later this year, hopefully the first half of this year. The Porteous kiosk video that I released on Friday seems to be doing pretty well. If you haven't seen that, I will drop a link down here in chat. Okay, let's see. Joseph says, this may be my last live stream until at least March. Major winter storm disaster expected later this week. Yep. I think David's been getting hit with that already. So let's jump back to news items. SUSE has a new support option where they'll support SUSE Linux and I believe CentOS, now that CentOS has changed. And it's called SUSE Liberty. So if you're looking for an enterprise level support option, you may want to check that out. Ubuntu 21.04. This is one of the short-term releases that was released in March of 2021. Is now end of life in anticipation of the new release, the new long-term support release that's coming out in just about 3 months from now. Not quite 3 months from now. Let's see, the issue that I had made a video on with Windows 11 where it crashes and reboots after disconnecting with RDP is still happening. I'm still trying to track down where exactly that problem is, but unfortunately the logs really don't show anything, and it remains a little bit of a mystery. Let's see, LibreOffice 7.3 is supposed to release between 131 and 2.6, and if you're familiar with their release cycles, usually at this point in the development cycle, everything is stable and you would be okay downloading the most recent release candidate, because many times I've seen, having used this piece of software for many years, they usually will release their release candidate 3 or 4, whichever it happens to be, to the release version. So if you get the latest release candidate, you should be about set. Let's see, from Slashdot, Apple is finally removing Python 2.7 from macOS when it releases version 12.3. So that's kind of interesting. SUSE has also released Rancher Desktop 1.0 to allow you to run Kubernetes on your PC. This is available for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. The Windows version does rely on Windows subsystem for Linux, so that's kind of a prerequisite. And I will throw the URL for that down in chat in case anybody's interested. Okay, let's jump back. Let's see. For the first time in nearly 17 years, the stable Linux kernel version has over 999 commits, but not everyone heard about this. And so this is kind of it was a glitch as far as sending out notices to people. It's not as big a deal as the headline would have you believe. But in the article, they did point out that for the first time, kernel version 5.15.17, which is a long-term support kernel, includes an in-kernel Ntfs driver. This is the open-sourced version of the product that Paragon Software has made available, and I guess it's taken over a year for them to get the changes made that have been requested by the kernel maintainers, but they did in fact get those made, and that has made its way into the long-term support kernel. And that link is now in the chat. Okay. So that gets through the news items. Let me bring my screen on. Okay, I'm going to take myself off screen. That looks better. Okay, so what you're seeing here is Proxmox virtualization server. And we're on the data center node in the tree on the left side. and we're in backup. And I currently have a backup running, but I wanted to talk through a couple of options that exist for backing up Proxmox. Tony, welcome. Hope everybody's doing well today. Okay, so before we jump into this, let's go back and look at the type of backup that you could do from an individual VM or container. And so if you click on an individual VM or container, each of them will have a backup option. And let's see. Yeah, error fetching data stores. If we select backup now, it should let me select local. And you can do local backups in Proxmox. I'm not going to start this now, but you could do local backups in Proxmox, and then you could use a script to watch a directory and use something like rsync or maybe syncthing or whatever your tool of choice is to push those backups over to another server, whether it be a NAS or something else. So there's option number one. And then we've got data center level backups, which is where we started. And so if you're going to start here, again, you're on the backup node in the secondary tree. You can say add. Again, you can select your backup location. So you may want it to be local. You can select your schedule, and we might just say Monday through Friday. I'll probably just delete this later. Include selected VMs, and let's just pick Pop OS. And the mode, I'm going to set this one to stop, and then we'll go ahead and create. All right, so now Monday through Friday, provided the server is up and running, Monday through Friday, this will be backed up to local storage. And of course, if we wanted to modify that, we could say keep one daily backup. Okay, the third option, and I was hoping that this would be complete by now, is using Proxmox Backup Server. And for those who may not have seen it before, I have a video. And granted, this is for version 2.0, but I do have a video on Proxmox Backup Server, which I have just dumped into chat. And I'm not going to go into a complete install and setup of this in this video, but let me log back in. Okay, let's refresh this. May be locked because the backup is running. Anyway, so here in Proxmox VE, we can see that there is a VM locked for backup. And that really should be the last Let's do that. That should be the last VM that needs to be backed up in this backup set here. And I am going to change that to every 2 hours so that doesn't fire off again during the live stream. Okay, so is it still not wanting to log in? Connection is timed out. Well, that's not cool. That's what I did. Yeah, I shouldn't have started updates on that Proxmox backup server right before the live stream. Okay, so that's going to sit for a little while. So I guess we can circle around back to this. Which, hey, this is one of those YouTube things, those strategies that people have talked about called an open loop. So we'll come back to this, and once our backup is completed and our updates have completed, then we should be able to get back into this server without an issue, because I do in fact have an active connection via SSH. Or maybe it's completely died on me. Okay. Well, we'll see what we can figure out here. All right. And yes. It's not happy. I had hoped to bring up a physical machine this morning, but that did not work out as planned. So I brought up the virtual machine version of Proxmox backup server, and we'll go ahead and restart that. And once it gets rebooted, we should be fine and ready to go again, and we'll take a look at that. So let's take a look in chat while we're waiting. Let's see. Failed to start import ZFS pool big store PVE. Well, I may have just nuked this whole thing. Great. Well, you know what they say about good intentions. Okay, so we will maybe circle around to this later in the live stream. So let's see, we're at 11. Oh, okay. Well, server should be back up. Let's try this again. Hey. All right. So we have some information here. 10.75 gigs out of 48.86 used. And so we've got longest task. And it lists some things there. There are no running tasks. And of course, no valid subscription because this is home lab equipment and I'm not going to pay the price for a subscription until or unless I get some equipment that's newer and faster and only has one CPU socket, because they do charge by the socket for Proxmox VE and for the backup server. So just to quickly go over what I've got set up on this virtual machine version of Proxmox backup server. I did put a ZFS RAID Z2, so there's 4 virtual disks, which we can see here. They're 34.36 gigs a piece, and that gets us 136.37 overall. Let's see. So yeah, like I said, this I should make very clear that it is not recommended to run Proxmox backup server as a VM. If I weren't doing it for lab purposes and demonstration, I would not do it this way. So just something to keep in mind if you are planning to do this. So let's see. Okay, so we were going to look at adding the backup. So if you go to add, we've already got the, let's see, we want data center, we want to be in the storage node. And in order to get Proxmox backup server here, you have to do add Proxmox backup server. And it will ask you to supply an ID or name. And as you can see, I call this PBS on PVE because it's a virtual machine. The server IP address or fully qualified domain name, username and password, and the data store, which you would have set up on the backup server. Please note, you need to specify root at PAM for the username or it will not accept it. And then you will need to grab the fingerprint from the Proxmox backup server, which if we jump over here on dashboard, we can do show fingerprint. And I guess I don't mind showing that because it's not going to do anybody any good. They can't get to this server. You'll copy this and you'll paste it into the dialog. And then after you've connected your Proxmox virtual environment to PBS, you should be able to select PBS as one of the storage locations and schedule backups normally. So in this instance, if we go to backup, add, you'll see that the primary backup option is PBS on PVE. Select your schedule. So we'll say first day of the year. I'm going to delete this afterwards, so it's not a big deal. And then, of course, you can send to an email and notify always or notify on failure only. And you've got your choice of modes. So you can do this while a VM is running. And then you select your VMs down here. And of course, you want to set a retention schedule. And then you just say create. And what did I not put in? No, I didn't select a. Let's do that. So we just selected one VM. That actually might have been a container. And that's a yearly backup. So this container may very well not even exist on the 1st of 2023. So again, that's something I will just go ahead and remove now. I think that covers everything for Proxmox backup server. Those are your different options. Now, for instance, on my other Proxmox virtual environment server, you can see down here I've got storage set up on Lord Nikon, which is one of my NAS boxes, and Zero Cool. If you couldn't tell, I'm a fan of the movie Hackers, and I named these after characters in that movie. So when I do a backup on, let's just pick a VM here. If I do a backup, say backup now, it should give me the NAS machines as options to back up, and it does. There's Lord Nikon, and you can see different things here. Zero Cool is down there, and there's a OMV6 and OMV5 VMs that I was playing with, which are currently unreachable because they are not powered on. So you've got options here, very similar to the big backup. You could, of course, do NAS backups from the data center tab or node as well. And that's the same type of process. You do add, you select your backup location, and go from there. Now, you might be asking, why would you do Proxmox backup server over just going direct to your NAS? Well, that's a good question. Keep in mind that this is enterprise ready software, and so, you know, in enterprise there's additional configuration requirements that a NAS may not meet those requirements. And of course, you can get support from the Proxmox company for doing for their server, and probably less support for a NAS, which they have no control over. So just something to keep in mind there. But regardless, it's of course best practice to be backing up VMs, at least any VMs that you rely on for anything. So for instance, my most important VM here is an instance, an LXC container running Unbound, which is a DNS server, which admittedly I need to rebuild, but that's a whole other story. All right, so let's check out chat, and then we will move on to our next topic. Looks like we're pretty much caught up. Joseph says there's an ice storm expected Wednesday night. Good luck on that, Joseph. We've had a few ice storms here in Michigan, and they weren't real fun. So good luck, stay safe. Let's see. All right, I think we're pretty much caught up. A lot of this is just people talking amongst themselves. So we'll go to the next item on my list. Okay, so this is just a highlight from an article that I saw actually this morning on bleepingcomputer.com. And I'll dump this in chat. And so I found this interesting. And maybe I should bring myself back on screen a little bit. Okay, so I found this interesting because they actually quoted a Microsoft Program Manager for Windows updates in MEM, whatever that is. It's probably a organization inside of Microsoft. And he's quoted as saying, Windows devices need at least 8 hours online to get the latest updates and successfully install them. Which I found interesting. Later in the article, the number of hours is restated as a minimum of 2 continuous connected hours and 6 total connected hours after an update is released to reliably update. And so this is coming right from a Microsoft Program Manager, and I found this very interesting because I know several people, and especially people that are reliant on mobile hotspots as their primary internet connection. They don't necessarily keep their computer online for that amount of time in one session. So very different than what you see with a Mac or a Linux machine. You really don't have to keep your computer connected that long. Once you pull down the updates, your computer can effectively be offline while it installs the updates on both Mac OS and Linux. So hopefully Microsoft will be addressing this, because 8 hours is on the ridiculous side in my opinion. But you know what they say about opinions. So you know, for those of us who are always connected, it's not a big deal. But they did have some interesting statistics about computers that are not fully updated, and this being a primary reason why. So I found this article interesting and thought it was worthy of conversation today. So 8 hours, that is really stupid. I completely agree, Joseph. I completely agree. Yeah, I knew there were issues with Windows updates, but yes, it's gone from ridiculous to stupid and ludicrous and whatever other word we might want to attach to it. That sounds like when I was trying to load Windows 7 on a PC when 7 was in its waning days. Yep. So, uh, interesting revelation about Microsoft updates and the process behind them. So, all right, let me see. Get into Linode and all right. It may be due to the way Microsoft spreads out its updates to folks. That's possible. Um, my understanding was usually the updates are normally only spread out when it's a bigger update, like 20 half one to 20 half two or equivalent. But I could be wrong on that. All right, so I'm going to take myself off screen again and bring this up full screen. Once you've signed up for an account, oops, if I get on the right screen, there we go. Make this a little bit bigger. Once you create an account, this is the screen you will see when you log into Linode. And each of these cloud platforms has their own terminology around the cloud servers that they offer. And so we're going to spin one up today just as a way for me to get familiar with this, and for those of you who have not seen this before, give you some exposure as well. I will make the disclaimer, this video is not in any way sponsored by Linode, so I will be spinning down and destroying the Linode after this video because this is something that is on my dime. So yeah, but if we use the $5 a month tier, for the hour or two, for the hour or two that this will be up and running, it's going to be a few pennies. So let's go ahead and click on Create Linode, and we've got a Create button here, and we've got one at the top as well that gives you additional options. We're just going to create Linode. All right, and across the top we've got different options. So we've got distributions, and they've got a good number in this list, including Rocky Linux, which is one of the replacements for CentOS. There's Ubuntu going back to 1604 LTS. OpenSUSE. And for you people that really want to be elite, they've even got Arch. So, and there's Elma Linux, which is one of the other replacements for CentOS. So they also have Marketplace, which is for a pre-installed OS and an application. And so if you wanted a staging environment to do some experimentation with WordPress, you could deploy a WordPress instance. There's Nextcloud. There's Plesk, which is a WordPress and website management platform. cPanel is another option. There's a CyberPanel. There's Minecraft Java Edition, so you could run your own Minecraft server. There's AA Panel, Ant Media Server, a whole bunch of different things. Discourse. There's File Cloud and Drupal and Docker. So you could have your Docker and a Docker instance running in the cloud. Grafana for graphing. Guacamole, which does remote desktop type things. Jitsi is an open source Zoom workalike. There's a Lightspeed cPanel. There's different NoSQL databases like MongoDB. There are relational databases like MySQL or MariaDB. Learning platform Moodle. All kinds of things. OpenVPN if you want your own VPN server in the cloud. Rocket Chat. All kinds of things here. WooCommerce. And Zabbix for monitoring. WireGuard is another VPN option. So there are a lot of things to choose from here. We're going to go back to the top and explore a little bit more. There's Stack Scripts. And there's Community Scripts. And obviously there's nothing on Account Scripts currently. But there are different options here as well that give you configuration options. They do let you upload your own images, which is nice. They've got backup options and an option to clone an existing Linode. Let's see. What do we have in the chat? The biggest problem with Arch is that you have to keep it constantly updated, which is apparently impossible when you get frequent disasters, despite your which deplete your resources. Yes. Now I guess I've only dabbled in Arch and Arch-based distributions, and so I have observed that the problem is not quite as big when you run something like Arco or Manjaro. So I keep looking at those, and maybe one day I will make some videos covering them again. I think I've covered Manjaro before. Arco I have not covered in a video. Linode supports so many instances. Surprised it doesn't have a unified controller instance. Well, no, I don't see it. I'm not sure which platform it was. It was either DigitalOcean or Vultr, both of which I have accounts on. One of those does have a unified controller instance because that's where I'm running my unified controller. At some point I'll probably bring that back local. It was sort of an experiment when I put it up. So okay. Does anybody have any preference on which one of these I choose? I mean, I might just throw up an Ubuntu cloud server if nobody really has a preference. They both do. Using DigitalOcean. I'm using DigitalOcean, but Crosstalk advocates for Vultr. Yeah, that's probably where I found out about Vultr to begin with is Crosstalk. And it seems like Willie has thrown in his hat on one of these at one point or another. But I honestly can't remember which one was his preference. So yeah, I do think my controller is on DigitalOcean, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I've got that. No, that's not it. I don't think I've got that open right now, so I won't worry too much about it. Let's see. The way I look at it, as long as ERCOT cannot provide reliable power during extreme weather, I will no longer be able to run Arch. I will then have to run Debian-based distributions going forward. Yeah, I don't know. I've used Debian distributions for the probably 15 years now, 17 years ish. I think my first 5 years or so, I was on Red Hat based distros. And then I migrated mainly to Debian based things. And they just seem to keep ticking and work for me. Proxmox happens to be Debian based. And so having the years of experience with Debian-based systems has served me well on that front. And, you know, these days with Flatpaks and app images for desktop systems, you know, it's... Honestly, there's not that much difference anymore. You know, it all seems to be about ricing desktops, and you know, that's just not my bag. So yeah, Willie likes Hostify. I know Tom at Lawrence Systems talks about Hostify quite a bit as well. I have not checked that out, but that's, you know, if I had clients using Unify, that's definitely something I would be looking at. MX Linux is my go-to Debian distro. They're all decent, just depends on one's own needs. Absolutely. Okay, so let's just spin up. We'll just throw up Ubuntu 2004, and let's see. This is one thing I like less about Linode, is the locations of their data centers. Knowing about the storm that's coming through, I'm not comfortable picking New Jersey. So let's go Texas. No, it's a little further away from me than I would typically choose, but we'll run with it for the moment. And we're going to use the shared CPU, the $5 a month option, and that's 0.0075 cents an hour. Get you one CPU, 25 gigs of storage, and that's fine. Put in a password, and it looks like I've previously uploaded SSH keys, so that's all good. And then we'll just go ahead and create a Linode. And it's provisioning. And we'll copy the SSH command. And once this is done provisioning, we will go ahead and connect to it. Let's see. Storm is through, just clean up now. Okay, that's good to know. Texas will not be safe due to the winter storm later this week. Well, I'm not going to leave the machine up and running. If it were a longer term thing, then I would be worried about that, but I will probably destroy this after the live stream is over. So I'm not terribly worried. If you have to choose Texas, Houston, or Brownsville, will be your safest bet. Okay, so it is up and running. So we will come over here and go ahead and connect. And we are in our Linode in Texas. Just like that. So, and of course from here, if you so desired, you could take the time and build up whatever custom solution you wanted from an Ubuntu server base. So memory and CPU usage are pretty low, and gives us a little bit of information on our disks. I suppose I can make this a little bigger. Might be easier for everybody to see. I'd imagine it's pretty much updated. I'm sure they're using something like Cloud Init to continually keep their images ready to go. And we'll go ahead and run the upgrades on those packages. So setting this up is no more difficult than any of the other cloud providers. It is interesting to point out that Linode has actually been doing this longer than Amazon has had AWS. So just something to think about. And so if it's older than AWS, then it's got years on Azure and Oracle cloud infrastructure as well. So just a good option to have. The data center locations may steer a decision for company use, commercial use, which option you'd want to choose, whether it's DigitalOcean, Vultr, Linode, AWS, Azure, whatever else is out there. I know even DreamHost is offering cloud services these days. I think a lot of the hosting providers are getting into that if they aren't doing it already. It's not a market that is going to get smaller anytime soon. Although there is a trend from a lot of people where they are, moving to more of a hybrid cloud type of approach. And that's where I see myself. I've got some things running in the public cloud. Most of my stuff is running locally mostly for home lab type applications. So yeah, that gets us updated on that. And if we come back here, we can see last backup never. We've got the options to power off and reboot, clone, resize, rebuild, rescue, migrate, or delete. Yeah, this is interesting. They've got their own little twist on their dashboard. I think all of the major players now are offering object storage, which is in most cases it's going to be Amazon S3 compatible type storage. Down to the terminology where you create a bucket. So, that's an option there as well. They've got different articles here for support. And of course, you've got phone support, I believe, during the week, anyways. So, like I said at the beginning, I've not deeply looked into Linode, but it was something that I had an account. I haven't really played with too much. And so I thought this would be a good complementary topic for today to go along with the Proxmox stuff. Being a security purist, the cloud is not something I seriously consider. One major hack by an insider at the provider will be a big problem. Yes, this is true. And I would be very hesitant myself to rely solely on the cloud, and that's why I keep monitoring the trend towards hybrid cloud. I would be relatively comfortable setting up something like a VPN server or a proxy server to get myself access into my home network. But for other larger applications, it would be run here locally with multiple levels of backups. And that's one of the big reasons that I advocate for not for Windows users for not mapping drive letters to your NAS, because if you do get breached in some way, if you've got that drive letter mapped, it's gonna, they could encrypt everything on your NAS on that drive that you've got mapped as well. So yeah, I agree. I'm not big on cloud stuff, but to keep my skill set as current as possible, I try to run little things that aren't mission critical in the cloud. Oftentimes, locked down with some pretty involved rules where I only allow specific IP addresses access to those cloud servers. So hybrid is becoming a huge option for many. Yes, absolutely. I think I started really hearing about this about 2 or 3 years ago. That hybrid was the option on the horizon, and I've kept following it since then. And it just seems like it's getting more and more press lately that it's something I want to be up to speed on if I have to implement it and not rely on vendors necessarily to do the whole implementation, so that I can keep things chugging along. Being in the energy infrastructure day job business, the number of power gen trans organizations that have made the switch, absent regulations, is very scary. Yes. That's something I followed as well. And the number of SCADA systems that are being retrofitted to be accessible over the public internet is that of nightmares. Yeah, it's cringeworthy how vulnerable our infrastructure in general tends to be. Very cringeworthy and nightmare inducing if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. Especially when things get touchy in the world. Yes, you are absolutely correct about that. Of course, I can reveal. Hopefully, you cannot. Oh, I see you corrected that in the next one. Cannot reveal any insider info you have. Yeah, I've followed reports from NIST and other organizations, and yeah, there's some really sketchy stuff going on, and I assume that it's a result of the bean counters and the C-level management types throwing their weight around and wanting cloud because it's the big buzzword, and it has been for years. Um, and when someone like me talks security, they get glaze-eyed. Yes, I understand. I feel the struggle. I feel the struggle. There are policies I would love to put in place in my day job, and management just isn't on board. And so I try to do what I can to keep extra backups and image clones of machines, and hope that I don't have to rebuild after a disaster. So far we've been very lucky, but it's always just a matter of time. So one bad update or one configuration glitch could spell the difference between being safe and being sleep deprived for an extended amount of time. All right. Yeah, I guess that sort of covers what I wanted to talk about today. Um, does anybody have any videos coming up or live streams? I know David released a video this morning. That was kind of interesting. Um, Media reader with a media reader dongle that's USB-C Type C. Um, so that is worth taking a look at for sure. But if anybody has a video or live stream coming up, feel free to throw that info out there at this point. I know a power organization that hired someone to test the possibility of, and they even got to all the backups. Yeah. That's why I really advocate for multiple levels of backups, including that off-site backup component. Whether it comes down to having multiple external hard drives and rotating those off-site, or you know, whatever other option you want to use, something like Backblaze or rsync.net or any of those things. Yeah, it's tough when your budget doesn't grow as quick as it needs to take care of all the day-to-day things. So let's see. As I said in my response to your comment, the original version of that reader was just fine. They got to the offsite as well since they compromised one of the IT admin accounts. Oh, bugger. Yeah. That's not good. They had remote access. Yep. Well, hopefully they weren't doing remote access just with plain RDP and not tunneling it through a VPN or anything. One of my former employers had their system set up to just RDP in, and you weren't required to connect to a VPN before connecting to it. And I made the case early on once I first got access to this option, and now the company's out of business. Oh, I'm glad I got out of there when I did. Even though it wasn't the ideal time to exit, but I'm glad it happened when it did. So, in any event, I guess one final thing I'll throw out there. I don't know if anybody has come into contact with one of these Telekin WoW computers. It's a computer that is marketed for seniors that are not tech savvy, and it looks like the machine itself looks like an iMac knockoff. But it's actually running a lockdown version of, I believe it's Slackware Linux. And it's got a touch screen, and for really really basic things it's okay. Um, um, oddly enough, let's see if I can bring up their website. Oddly enough, I had a patron at the library contact me about doing a reset on one of these machines, and it's like, okay, I'll take it home, I'll set it up, I'll make sure the updates are done, and I'll reset it. Well, it turns out that since this abomination is running a lockdown version of Linux, this company has locked it down so far that they only allow one quote unquote master or admin account and two additional accounts. And in order to reset the computer, you not only have to call the company, but you've got to have the person that purchased the computer with you to authorize the reset. And so, yeah, I'm trying to work around that little issue right now. Um, but in all honesty, I could not recommend against this machine more. They include a very very cheap keyboard with large print letters on it, and the mouse is equally cheap. It's supposed to have quote premium sound. Um, and maybe I'm just too picky about sound, but it sounded anything but premium to my ears. Um, and so I don't want to make any accusations against the sales practices of this company. But I will just say that I do not recommend this. I had this individual come to the library and meet me this past week, and we waited on hold for 40 minutes trying to get through to tech support in order to do the reset. So I'm trying a different option now. Okay, what do we have? We got a couple more comments. I was not privy to the vulnerability details. They don't want me to see stuff like that. I am known as a security stickler throughout the NA organizations. Yep. I've seen the advertisement for it before. Just like one of those as seen on TV products. Yes, exactly. And most as seen on TV products are garbage. So I'll just put a your mileage may vary caveat on this. But if you've got a senior in your life that is considering one of these, I would say purchase it in your name so that you've got access to do the resets. Yeah. So on that note, that brings us to 12:16. Excuse me. This has been fun today. Little bit of an adventure with the Proxmox stuff, but that's all right. It does appear that our machine has crashed again. Well, I will make another attempt on a physical machine, and we'll circle around to this. Since they're up to version 2.1 now, I uh, would kind of like to do a um, walkthrough of setting it up again, anyways. So, just curious. Well, it acts like it's up, but it's not responding. So we'll just kill this. I will have to investigate that later. Um, as I mentioned before, this particular server is getting about to the point where it needs to be put out to pasture. Um, it's just it's power hungry and old. um, so I'm looking at other options at this point. Um, these small, they call them mini PCs, um, are getting more and more attractive for virtualization type applications. The show you this machine that I bought earlier, well, last September, I think. October. So this little machine from B-Link, it is 16 gigs of RAM, DDR4, 500 gig NVMe drive, 57 watts. And it's got Wi-Fi 6, supports Windows 11, but it's one of those things that sometime after I have my A10 Mini Pro, I may be purchasing another one of these to just run Proxmox, because you can expand it out to 32 gigs, and I believe there's I think there's a second slot for a SATA type M.2, as well as a 2.5-inch SSD. So, there are other B-Link machines out there, even cheaper. I mean, this guy here is probably a Celeron, but it's an 11th gen, 16 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte SSD, Wacom LAN, which is nice for various things. But yeah, 5095, I believe that's a Celeron. 4 cores, 4 threads. Supports multiple monitors. A lot of these little machines, kind of a take on the NUC, the Intel NUC, make good little machines for doing virtualization and keeping the power consumption low. So, something to consider. How is the cooling on that unit? It's got a nice, the one that I bought, it's got a nice size heatsink and fan in it. And since it's a low power unit, it unless I'm running multiple VMs or have a bunch of uh, browser tabs open doing something heavy, it rarely the fan rarely spins up to an audible level. I've not done any, major long-term run it at max type of tests. But so far, I've had it since October. So far, it's been a rarity to have the fans kick up. So, but some of these are pretty attractive as far as the pricing and the capabilities. I mean, this one right here is the same processor as the one I got. 4 cores, 8 threads, dual channel RAM. This one supports up to 64 gigs. I've got 32 in mine. It came with a single 16 gig stick of DDR4 in the SODIMM package. But yeah, they tend to run quite regularly. These deals on these. This one's $30 off with coupon. There was another one I think was $60 off. I thought, oh, here's $90 off. That's a Ryzen 5, and the Intel version is $40 off. So there are some enticing options out there for something that's small form factor and low power consumption. I will say that these also, I think most of them, maybe all of these from B-Link, come with a Visa mount, so you could have it contained on the back of your monitor and have basically an all-in-one type machine to take with you places. So far I've been very impressed with the B-Link. The one thing I do want to check out, it's been a couple months now since I've checked to see if there's a BIOS or UEFI update, and I just want to check that to see if it takes care of that crash on RDP exit problem that I found. So this is the model that I got, and it's $70 off for $615. It's a nice little system. I've been very, very happy with it so far. And it's mainly just as a Windows 11 test system. After we're past the first 6 months of Windows 11 being out, and hopefully in that period of time, VirtualBox will release an updated version that supports the TPM 2.0. It will be interesting to see if I keep it running Windows 11 or if I make it a low power Proxmox box. That's a mouthful. All right. So on that note, thank you all for coming out. Had a good number of regulars today. If you have not taken a moment to do so, please like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are in the description options for buy me a coffee if you'd like to support the channel. And yeah, I've got some ideas I'm working through on bringing more videos out, and um, January was pretty good. Had a couple, maybe 3 videos that didn't perform quite as well as I would have liked, but kind of rebounded with the Porteous kiosk video, um, which came out of implementing that at my day job. So, um, you know, um, we used it for the catalog computer for doing library searches, and it was pretty slick for setting up something that had a um, pretty locked down need. And so, like I said in the video, you close the browser tab, it reopens, and it takes you to the specified homepage. And, um, there's no taskbar, there's, limited things you can change on the browser. It's pretty locked down and exactly what we needed for that application. So, uh, thank you all once again for coming out. I should have at least one video coming out this week. And if I don't see or talk to you in comments beforehand, I'll see you all hopefully next week in the next live stream. Have a great day, everybody.